Hello, everyone. Welcome to Career Pathways with Adeola Kagho. This is the podcast that brings you real stories, honest reflections, and transformative insights to help you navigate your careers with clarity, with courage, and purpose. So, if you're just starting, or you're reinventing your path, or pursuing global impact, then this is a safe space where you can be inspired, learn, and grow. I am your host, Adeola Kagho. Today I have with me a very special guest, Mrs. Oluyemisi Obe. She's a dear friend of mine, and I am extremely happy to be interviewing her today on the podcast. Yemisi is the CEO of Prothrive, and her product is Grandios Pap, and that product features on almost every breakfast table across Nigeria, Africa, and globally. Yemisi, we're welcome. You're welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Adeola. Thanks for the opportunity. And to the audience, thank you so much for joining Career Pathways.
All right. So let's dive straight into it. Could you please share with us your journey, highlighting just key highlights that will be useful for those who are seeking clarity in their journey right now?
Thank you so much for the question. So, as Adeola said, my name is Oluyemisi Obe. I'm a graduate of Accounting, University of Ilorin, and I also attended Federal Government Girls College, Akure, where I was a science student, and that has come in very handy in my business as well. So shortly after, I decided to study accounting because of my love for mathematics, and I wanted to play with numbers every day, all time. And then shortly after completing my education, I served at FCMB, and I also worked at Zenith Bank before moving on to KPMG Professional Services as a business consultant, and I worked there for about 5 years before I moved. Okay, so when I was in KPMG, I supported different businesses in telecoms, in banking, in oil and gas. And then that gave me the skills that I needed to be able to apply for experience role in the oil and gas industry. In the oil and gas industry, I worked at ExxonMobil, and then also at Shell Nigeria Exploration and Production Company. In both companies as a project accountant. Then I think about 7 to 8 years of working in the oil and gas industry, I decided to start my own business, which was formed as a result of the pains that I had experienced as a mother, and then also the pains that my husband has experienced as a consumer of pap in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. You've had such a rich journey, spanning banking, telecoms, oil and gas, and now entrepreneurship. Thank you for sharing that journey with us. So you had mentioned studying accounting, and now you are an entrepreneur. You are an innovator in the food sector, meaning a lot of overwords. And now you have the benefit of hindsight. And also, just knowing what you know today and seeing how the world of work is evolving. If you had to make that decision today again, especially so that our young professionals who are trying to make decisions today can learn from your journey, would you still choose accounting? And if so, why? Or are there other areas that you would then suggest that they explore so that their journey is accelerated and they thrive in the entrepreneurship space?
Thank you so much, Adeola. Benefits of hindsight, if I'm looking at the way my journey has gone, I believe that the accounting I studied is what has, given me the path and the access to where I am now. Because if I was not working in KPMG, I would not have been able to develop my research skills and all of that. And I would not have been able to apply that to my business and, to my life generally. So if I'm looking at that, studying accounting is still going to be my first love because of my love for numbers. And yes, the world of work, there's AI, but despite AI is here to support us, to help us to do our work better. It's not coming to take over whatever the job that we have. It's to just help us. So, for example, as a business executive, I have maybe 300-page board document that I want to read and make decisions on. AI is going to summarize the document for me. It's not going to sit in, even if it sits in that meeting with me, It's not going to be the human, it's not going to be able to give the human face that is required. So yes, AI would help us to do our work better. But so for example, as an accountant, yes, even if you're still an accountant in a business, AI would help you to summarize the data. AI is not going to help you to key in the data. You will still need to key in the data. Even if AI is going to help you to key in the data, all the receipts and all of that, you still need to scan it. So there's still some work that you have to put in. And so there's still a human bit of that work. AI will summarize the details. It will tell you, okay, these are the decisions that you can make. 1, 2, 3. So based on the environmental conditions or maybe some other subjective reasons that AI might not or would not even have that information or cannot feel as a human being, you as the accountant in the business will now say, okay, these are the options, but based on these that I have seen, let us go with this. You know, you will still be able to help your management to be able to make decision that requires the human input. So accounting is still very much needed and very much relevant even in today's world. That's for an accountant. But for my business or my role now as a business owner, I think if I look at the benefits of hindsight and the fact that I studied sciences in secondary school, I think I would have helped me better if I studied either engineering or food technology. I mean, so that because right now what I'm doing is, yes, there's a business aspect to it, but there's a lot of technology support or foundation. So having a technology background would have helped me better. But I'm helping myself right now by going to school. And when I'm saying going to school, doing research, reading books, reading documents, talking to people, consulting to be able to fill in that lack that I don't have as a graduate of an engineering degree. So basically that's it. So if I'm looking at it, so there are two hats now that as an accountant, it says still room for me in today's world. Yes, there's still room for accountants in today's world. But as a business owner who is in technology-based business, I think it would have served me better if I had studied a technology-based course. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I love the way that you've approached it. So basically what you're telling our young professionals is if your strength is in accounting, you still see that it's going to be very relevant in the future of work. And so there's no need to worry about that. But for somebody who has the strength to take on science subjects, you do find that engineering would have been a lot more helpful or beneficial for you because you're in the manufacturing space right now. So that's really good insight. So if our young professionals are looking at being entrepreneurs in the future, then engineering is really a good one for them to study. Thanks a lot once again. During one of our conversations before this recording, you had told me how during your youth service, which is national service in Nigeria, you had a lot of offers already waiting for you even before the end of the service year. And really, young professionals nowadays, you find that even after the youth service, they stay on for so many years, unable to find opportunities. What do you think enabled or positioned you to get those opportunities even before you had finished your service year?
Thank you so much for that question, Adeola. So a lot of, I think, benefits of hindsight, or if I look back on my journey, I've seen that there has been a lot of value that I've gotten from people that have walked the path ahead of me.
Mm.
Me talking to them and then they telling me, oh, based on what I know now, it would make sense for you to do this, to do this, to do this. So I'll give you an example. When I was in school, I had a friend who also studied accounting. And then I think it was maybe about 2 or 3 years ahead of me. And then he had gone to serve and then he came back to school. Maybe he came to collect his certificate or whatever. I can't remember what he came to do. And then I saw him and he said, Yemisi, anything you want to do, make sure that you come out of school with a 2-1. So I took that and I worked towards it. I think maybe around that time I may have been in 200 level. And that, made me to sit down to check my grades and say, what do I need to do to get a 2-1? And then I would list all my subjects and say, okay, in this one, I have to get 60 or I have to get 70, I have to get, and then I would do the calculation and then I put in the work and then I ensure that I got a 2-1. And then also somebody else had told us that, employers of this world, though, these days when they want to recruit, you have to write pre-employment tests and all of that. And a lot of them, they do GMAT. So I'd gone to study GMAT, I think during, when we finished before we went to camp. I studied GMAT back to back. I borrowed GMAT from somebody who was ahead of me as well, and then solved all the questions. I mean, the whole book. So preparation is very, very, very important in whatever that one wants to do. Because if I had not studied the GMAT, I'm not saying that I'm maybe the most brilliant of all the people that wrote the test. As I told you, during the service year, I didn't go to our own camp because our camp was delayed by 1 month. So I was going to Lagos camp and I was writing tests with them as a couple as well. And in almost all the tests that I sat for, I would come first 3. It's not because I'm the most brilliant in the room. It's because I had prepared. I'd read my GMAT and a lot of those questions were coming out of GMAT. So what I'm saying is that whatever it is that one wants to do, so you already have an idea of what you want to do. You have to ask yourself, what do I need to be able to achieve this? If you can't answer that question by yourself, you talk to people, who have gone ahead of you to find out what they were able to do, how they were able to do it. And then there'll be pointers they will tell you or provide guidance for you. So that was what helped me to be able to get those offers. So for every person or every youth who is out there looking for work and saying, no, there's no work, there is work, because me and a whole lot of other entrepreneurs, we're always complaining every day that we don't find people. So I believe that it's on each one of those people to prepare themselves. Yes, school has taught you, but you have to teach yourself as well. You have to learn, go to places where you find out how to prepare for interviews, what you need to do, the typical questions that interviewers ask, or if you're going to be writing tests, what are the typical questions that come out, and prepare yourself and skill yourself up to be a preferred candidate when employment opportunities open up. Thank you.
Wow. So your cases preparation made you ready for those opportunities. But I did hear a lot of mentoring. So throughout your journey, you sought out mentors. And it wasn't just about seeking out these mentors. You actually listened to the things that they told you and prepared. And so when those opportunities came, because you were prepared, you then got the offers. And that's real value that you have shared with us, because we still find a lot of people who don't even get offers many, many years after they've left their youth service camp. So, or finished the youth service for the year. So thanks a lot for that. You also, in sharing your journey, you've told us, the fact that you've worked across various sectors. You've worked in banking, telecoms, oil and gas, the best of the best. And you've also worked in top companies, professional services as well. And what we do find is that when people start their journeys, say, for example, someone starts at the bank, they end up being stuck there for so many years. But your journey shows us that it is possible to pivot across many sectors. So firstly, I would like for you to share what you think has enabled you to be able to pivot across all these sectors where people complain or they get stuck in one sector, especially the one where they start. That is on the one hand. On the second hand, there is a debate. There's usually the debate around, do I need multi-sector experience, or is it better for me to just have depth in one sector? I would also love for you to share your perspective on that debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for multi-sector experience, right? So for example, the example that you've given, like in the bank, you can also have multi-sector experience in the bank. So one thing that is very, very important, and which is something that I do and I would advise for everybody to do, is that wherever it is that you find yourself, don't just take it as face value. Delve into it, understand the sector that you're working in. Make yourself to be the go-to person for information about that particular sector. So I'll give you an example. There are times that, I have discussions with my banker or with a banker, and they're offering me a product. And then I'm asking the banker a question, and the banker is saying, sorry, hold on, let me go and ask, I'll get back to you. That already tells me that you don't have in-depth understanding of even the work that you're doing. So compare that to another banker who has full information. As I'm asking, they're telling me, they've even gone ahead to understand my business. You don't have to work in my business to understand my business. You can do research online. Oh, the food processing industry in Nigeria. There are a lot of documents out there. The food processing industry in the world. What are the kind of supports that they need? So for me, being in a particular environment, there are people that, they start their lives as bankers. So for example, for Adeola, started his career as a banker. No, I think he started as an accountant. At some point, I moved to banking. Right. But he was in banking. He was a career banker and he moved all the way to the top. And there we have so many other career bankers. I have them all around me as well. So being in that space is not the end of it. That's just a means to an end. So wherever it is that you find yourself, making sure that you delve into it, you enter into it, it becomes you. You wake up, questions are, coming. So for example, even when I was in the bank, I was in treasury marketing. At some point in time, I was in operations, but I tried to understand what people who were in marketing were doing. I tried to understand what the cash and teller people were doing, despite the fact that I was not in those spaces. So now that has helped me even as an entrepreneur. When my bankers come or when I go to the bank and they want to start telling me something, I tell them, sorry, I was an ex-banker, this. If I didn't acquire that knowledge at that time, I wouldn't be able to bring it, to bear. So being able to pivot across industries. So I'll give you an example. There are times that even KPMG employs people who have had experience in the bank. So for example, if we were supporting if you're in the banking and you're supporting people like Dangote, you're supporting people like Lafayette, how much of their business do you know? Because by the time it comes to interview, those are the kind of questions that they would ask you.
Mm.
Is what you know, is the knowledge that you've been able to acquire that helps you. I'm not the only one who worked in KPMG as a consultant, who worked in MTN, who worked in the bank, who worked in the oil and gas industry. But by the time I was going for the interviews in the oil and gas industry, the knowledge that I had acquired as a professional, who was supporting them at that time in the oil and gas industry, came to be as they were asking me questions, I was able to answer. And then when I already knew that, I'm going to go for this interview, I source people out just like I told you, So that's one thing that I do very well, seeking people out who have gone ahead of me in that particular space to understand what that their industry is all about. And then I also research, I gain understanding. That's something that everybody that wants to pivot needs to do. I'll give you an example as well. There was a time that I used to sell gold, right? And a lot of times my customers would give me their jewelry to help them repair. Then I'll give a goldsmith. And then the goldsmith, sometimes they will spoil the jewelry because they didn't know what to do or how to do it very well. Do you know what I did? I went for a goldsmithing course. I put myself in for a 1-week goldsmithing course to understand golds, not because I wanted to be doing it, but so that when I'm taking my customers' jewelry to the ghost, I will tell them, this is how you will do it. I'm speaking their language. So that's what every employer or everybody that wants to move you to the next level, wants to promote you, wants to know that if I give you this job, if I give you this opportunity, I won't be disappointed. You will deliver on the job. So what am I trying to say? Preparing in that space that you are in, understanding that space, understanding the value that your role brings to the table, giving it all it takes, leave it, wake up, it is as they wake you up like this and they're asking you questions, you're able to, provide the value. And then people see that value in you and they want to be part of that value. Thank you so much.
All right. That was powerful because I've heard so many things come out. You started by saying even if you're in one sector, say the bank, for example, it could also be multi-sector. Firstly, by you immersing yourself in what you're doing, and when you've grasped that fully, then begin to look beyond what you're doing to understand the whole interconnectedness within the system that you're working in, because that knowledge is what is going to help you pivot to another sector when an employer comes. And that's so powerful because we sometimes find people who just want to go to work, deliver their bit, and that's it. But for you, you're saying, even in that space that you're in, look beyond it, understand how things connect to each other because it is preparing you for that pivot. That's really, really powerful. And thanks for sharing that with us. So you've been lucky to have multi-sector experience. And how would you say that experience has helped you now in terms of running Prothrive as an entrepreneur?
Thank you so much, Adeola. It's been the multi-sector experience I've had has been very, very invaluable in running my
Mm,
business. So the first one, just like I've said before, banking. It has helped me, when negotiating on having conversations with my bankers or when giving my accountants instructions on what to do, or even understanding the interface and with the kind of support that bankers can give to the business. So that has helped me. From my consulting experience, the research skills have been invaluable in developing my business, in even continuing to run my business. I gained serious research skills. A lot of the trainings that we also had, negotiation skills, interpersonal skills, all of those things have helped me as well. And then even the oil and gas. Yes, I was in upstream oil and gas, but there was a time that during my work in KPMG, I also supported downstream oil and gas. That has also helped me, right, in my business because it tells me, okay, diesel, this, and all of that. And, so a lot of times when you talk to my staff, they will tell me, our boss, she knows everything. I don't know everything, but I'm just lucky that, I've had all of those experiences. And whilst at those points, I was able to grasp and I can say I grasped and then I took on the lessons, I allowed them to form me, to shape the way I think, the way I do my things. So, for example, in KPMG, there's this respect for the individual, there's this way that we walk, there's this way you carry yourself, the aura that you give yourself. So, that has helped me as well. Even in my business, every day I preach respect for the individual. Everybody has to relate on first name basis. Everybody has to work, hand in hand to see the end to end, can I say, end to end value that your own role is given. And then also, one other thing that I know that has helped me and that I still do in my business, even when things go wrong, I ask questions. I ask, okay, and that's something that I've been able to also put into my staff. So even when something goes wrong, yes, it has gone wrong. We're not looking for who to blame, but we're finding out why this thing went wrong. Is there anything that we could have done to prevent it from going wrong? If yes, okay, that means we have a gap that we need to fill. So we document. And then, is there anything that we can do to prevent it from happening again? We document. Is there anything that we can learn from this going forward? So that's also I gained from my consulting and oil and gas experience. So when things happen, I mean, when I was working, those are part of the questions that we used to ask. And then one other thing that I also gained, I mean, in the oil and gas industry is safety. Oil and gas is big on safety. So, that safety, now it has won me as a quote. Let me just use that word. Because even at home, everywhere my children will say, mommy, she will say, what can go wrong? What can go wrong? That's, for me, that's it. Any decision that I want to take, the first question I'm asking is, what can go wrong? And then I'm putting mitigating actions in place. So before I even
mm,
take a step, so it's very, very important, that safety. So safety is like my number one key. And every time I talk safety, I preach safety, even at work. So everybody that works with me, they know safety, madam safety, or madam safety. And that's one of, part of those things that I gained from my work experience in the oil and gas industry. Thank you so much.
So clearly, I mean, all the sectors you've worked in, you've been able to transfer skills into your current business from technical skills such as the health and safety to leadership, where you are looking at continuous improvement and also, using it to manage the people that work with you at the moment to risk management, because that came up a lot in your conversation. So clearly all those skills you've learned from working across all those sectors have been very useful in the running of your business today. Yeah. So, even in the conversation today, you had mentioned that at some point you sold gold, yet you've had, very strong corporate roles. You sold gold, you've also sold clothing at some point, combining this with your corporate roles. So I want to ask, because there's a debate around, should people who hold, this very strong corporate roles also have side hustles, because I mean it could be a distraction, but somehow you have managed to hold it down well. And there's also the other side that argues that, for resilience, it's also important to test those waters. So what's your view on professionals having side hustles. Also, I would like to bring in the perspective of the economic situation of Nigeria today. I used to be a very strong believer that if you were, on a job, you needed to just focus on that job so that you could quickly grow through the ranks. But that is changing because the economic situation in this country is making me rethink these things. But it'll be nice to hear your perspective on that subject.
Thank you very much, Adeola. So, just like you said, my career, there's one thing or the other that I'm selling. I guess that comes from I can call it my innate entrepreneurship
Mm,
skills. Because right from when I was young, I've always, done one thing or the other from when I was in, I think, secondary school. I'd always done one thing or the other. There was a time my mom was selling socks and I just carried the socks. I carried my younger ones. I think I was in maybe primary six or JS1. And then nobody sent us, we're just walking, holidays when I was in secondary school, I'll make hair, I'll go and buy hair bands, things like that. So I'd always been doing one thing or the other, when we talk about selling. And I guess maybe because I was also looking at my final points at that time was that I wanted to be selling clothes. So there is room if you're able to compartmentalize your life and plan
mhm,
yourself very well. There is a way you can do your 9 to 5 and then also do your side hustle in a way that they don't even clash and your 9 to 5 does not suffer.
mm,
But if you know that you cannot compartmentalize your life that way, it's better that you choose one because there's no point. You're not giving 100% to your employer. You won't be able to see the growth that you want to see in that space. And then even your 9 to 5, you're not putting the structures in place to be able to grow the business properly. You won't see the growth that you need, your desires that you desire, right? So I think for me, the first thing is being able to understand yourself as a person.
yeah.
Who am I? Am I able to do this? There are some people who are
Mm,
multitaskers, who can do so many things at the same time. And then there are some people that they know themselves that I cannot, then it's important that you focus, right? But even in that focus, even as you are focusing on that employment, if you are somebody who is in employment, giving it your 110% to the point where you become a very valued staff that as opportunities come, because as your bosses are rising, they themselves, they want to surround themselves with people who would do the work, who would what's that word? Deliver. I think that's the word that bosses use.
yeah.
Who will deliver, who will not disappoint them. So definitely if you're invaluable to your boss as your boss is rising, he's pulling you along. As he's moving to another organization, he's already looking at the people in the organization he was working before who would work with him, and count them out. So there's room so for me, the way I did mine, even when I was selling clothes, I did not allow whatever it is that I was doing outside of office hours to affect my work. I would not just go off work so usually if I went, the times I was selling clothes or jewelry, I would maybe utilize maybe public holidays or my leave, my approved official leave to source. Then I was not the one carrying these things around or selling. Because I knew that I wanted to focus, just like I said, 100% on my job. I had somebody who I employed who was handling the retail sales for me for salary, right? And then all that I would do is maybe on a weekly basis during the weekend as well, we would do reconciliation, and things like that. So I made sure that it was only during my spare time, it was my spare time that I devoted to running my business. So that's the reason why I'm saying compartmentalizing your life. Nevertheless, it's not everybody that can do side hustle. So that's where, just like I said before, a thorough and objective assessment of yourself. Self-awareness is very, very important in whatever it is that we want to do. Know yourself, know your limits, know what you can do, and then, go for it. Now, even whilst I was, trying to put together my current business, whilst I was working, I never utilized my office hours. I mean, the time that my employer has paid for. I would usually work during the weekends or my approved leave. So my work was not suffering. I was devoting my 100% to my work. And then the time that I had for my own person was my own personal time was what I was devoting to, to my business. So that's the way I was able to put everything together. And then a lot of times, even when I go for leave, this goldsmithing course that I'm telling you, but it was during my leave period that I did it. So I went on leave, and then during my leave, I applied my leave. So I didn't go on leave and just stayed at home. I know, people need to recuperate, but maybe some of us are just made differently. But that's it. Self-awareness and knowing your limits is very, very important. Thank
I
you.
mean, what I'm hearing is you've always been someone who's been entrepreneurial from the get-go. So that resilience has also been there. And you're suggesting that people need to know themselves, which is really critical because we're not all of the same makeup. Some will be able to combine it without their main job suffering, while, some, the moment they take on a side hustle, then they are unable to deliver their core jobs. And if you are that kind of person, you then have to make a decision. And it's better that you focus on the one that is your core. So thanks a lot for that. I recall, earlier in the conversation today, you had mentioned that at some point you opted for redundancy at the job at Shell. And, when people work at companies like Shell, they work there for many, many, many years. And that's rare to find someone opting to be made redundant where they have that much stability. What made you have that kind of courage? Because people really fear stepping out, especially when they have stable jobs like such as the one that you had.
Thank you so much for your question. I had a session with Fola Adeola, a group of people, maybe about 2 weeks ago. And then he said, it's only mad people that start businesses. And that thing stayed with me because I think I was mad. I'm sorry
Mm,
to say, because it took me about 6 months to even inform my parents, my mom, and my parents-in-law that I was no longer working at Shell because I knew they would not understand, right? So at first, I told them I was on sabbatical, that I took some time off to just be able to set up this business. One day, my mom just called me and said, with the way you this girl, with the way you're going, I don't think you took any redundancy. I think you left, right? So for me, I think being as entrepreneurs, we are always optimistic, right?
mm,
So I believe that it was that optimism that, I'd seen something that I believe that this is it. I told you that all the while I'd always wanted to do my own business. I'd always wanted
mm,
to do my own business. So that was something I'd always wanted to do. So it was a no-brainer that I was going to do that. But if you're, just like you said, if you're working in an oil and gas industry, it's like you're there till retirement, right? So I had worked, and usually I think did they say 45-15? So you put in, I think at that time when I was in Shell, if you're 45 years old and you've put in 15 years, you can go on retirement. I could have waited, right? But I'd put in so much into setting up that business. And I knew that there was no way I would, put in all my life savings into this business, which I'd not even started at all, right? I'd started, rented a place, started buying all the equipment and all that. I'd spent a lot of money. And I knew that I needed to see the business start. Grow this business. So I needed the time, just like we had said in your last question. So this one, there was no way I would employ somebody to be managing this business for me. It's no longer going to be a side hustle. This is going to be my main hustle. So I needed to leave the employment and focus. And that opportunity came. And I tell you, it was difficult to make that decision,
mm,
even for my bosses to even agree. Because I remember that I called my boss when I already got wind that something like that was going to happen. I called my boss and I told him that, boss, please, the next time the opportunity for redundancy comes and you are being requested to nominate people, I would want you to nominate me. And he said, hey, you, how? He said I should go and write him an email to that effect. I know that the reason why he was asking me to write him an email was because this is a valuable staff. All her performance reviews have always come in, nice, positive. How would he defend the nomination to his own bosses? So he needed to show them that I was the one asking for it. So that was the reason why he asked me to send him that email. And I sent him the email. And then when I told my friends at work that, oh, this is what I did, they said, hey, you did that? What if they don't even accept? They are not going to victimize you. By that point in time, I already had a tunnel vision. I already had my plan. I'd done all my business plan and all of that. So I already knew that that was what I was going to do. And I told them that whether or not that redundancy was approved, I was still going to resign anyway. But if I took redundancy, there's a bit of additional money that would come to me as redundancy payment. And I know my business still needs additional funds. So that's the reason I'm opting for redundancy. So it's something that I knew that whether or not that my request was approved, I will still go. So I guess there's a lot of courage that is needed, as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of resilience. There's a lot of optimism. Then there's a lot of back support as well. I mean, my husband was right at the forefront of supporting me, edging me on. My sister, my brother, my in-laws, everybody was just there. And I knew that, everybody, they have my back, even if they felt like I was crazy. I mean, just like I had said, living, what do you call it? Paid employment. I mean, fat salary, and going to nothing. And it's interesting to know that for the first 2 years, I was not even earning any salary in my new venture, because I knew that there was no way I could be earning salary and this business would work. So I was just working pro bono. I mean, in the first 2 years, just putting all to make sure that the business succeeded. That's it. Courage, believe that everything will work out fine. I put my numbers together. Although by the time I got to the war front, which is the entrepreneurship, all the numbers that we had put together, it didn't come out like that at the beginning. But then we saw that there was something in this and there's still something in it. That's the reason why I didn't even back out at some point in time, because I think about a year after I even started the business, one of my former bosses came with a very juicy offer again, that there's an oil and gas company that was looking for somebody that had my kind of experience and all of that. Oh my God, Diola, I was tempted. I was tempted. And because, the business hadn't even taken off the way that I had,
Yeah.
envisioned it would and all of that, I was tempted. But my husband encouraged me and said, you're onto something, just focus on this, give it all it takes, and you will see a difference. And here we now and now. Thank you.
Yeah, what jumped at me really is the fact that your vision was very clear. So from the get-go, you knew where you were going, and along the line, you already were working towards it. And so that redundancy was an opportunity to even get some additional to invest in your company. So it was that clear vision. There was focus. You were really focused. You were preparing along the way. You had support systems, such as your husband, and people who cheered you on and said the right things to you, even when juicy opportunities came along the way. So yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that. So when you became a mother, that then opened your eyes to seeing gaps in the market, from not finding the type of diapers that you wanted in the market to even baby cereals. That opened your eyes to market gaps. But what's really stirred you to action?
Thank you so much. So for me, even after seeing the gaps, my husband was quite instrumental. I mean, on this particular pap journey, right? When I started yearning to produce something, I mean, a baby cereal that would use locally available raw materials and would be nutritious enough for babies. We started talking to a food technologist to see, okay, it can happen and all of that. And he would formulate products for us, samples that we'll take to our friends and family. And then along the line, my husband said, oh, what about pap? And then I just looked at him, because at that time, we're talking about 2009, there was no pap on this in supermarkets, not even wet, not dry. The only pap you would get is the one that you would make in your house or that you buy from hawkers. So what I looked at, I mean, after I was able to convince me, was the value, my vision would bring to the lives of people. It was
Mm,
even beyond the money. At that time, money was not, on the table. Because, and another thing that I've heard over and over and over is that when you have value, money would follow. So the value was what spurred me on, because when I'm looking at it as a young mother, a young working mother, I wanted to feed my baby's pap anyway. And I would have to produce this pap. Usually I would soak the pap maybe Wednesday nights when I come back from work. Saturday, I would grind it, sieve it, and the whole stress that I used to go through to make pap for my family was something that I looked at and I said, taking this stress off young working mothers is something that would be quite impactful, that would impact their lives and even their quality of life, that will free them up of stress to be able to do other things that they wanted to do. So that was one very, very key thing that spurred me on. And then also looking at the health and safety bit as well. I am somebody that cares deeply about what I eat, the source of what I eat, how healthy it is. And a lot of this pap, people will just fetch water from their what do you call it, wells, without treating it and all of that. Producing pap, those were this part of the things that I thought about. Producing pap would require me to treat the water, because prior to when we even started, I'd gone to the NAFDAC website to get the guideline for production facility, food production facility. And in that, I saw that you would have to do water treatment. So producing pap with treated water in a NAFDAC approved facility was also very, very important, because now I know that people would eat this pap, they will eat our product, and they won't be sick from foodborne diseases and all of that. And then also adding value, being a source of employment was also key to me, because every day we are shouting, oh, there's no employment, people are
Yeah.
unemployed and all of that. So I looked at it, because by the time we're putting our numbers together, I think at the initial we looked at it that we're going to have maybe like 10 staff, so looking at that value, that, oh, we're going to be able to get additional people off the street, I mean, working instead of relying on their family for their sustenance, was also important to me. So those were part of the things that I looked at that spurred me on to say, okay, this is something that you should go for. And then also utilizing our local available raw material, maize
Mm.
and sorghum. I believe that by the time I'm doing that, because a lot of people left pap because of all of some of these things I'm talking about, the stress of producing it, the health implication of even buying the one that they don't know the source, and things like that. So they had gone on to custard and things like that. Custard, majority of the custard that we consume in Nigeria is made with imported maize starch, about 90% maize starch, 90 to 99, over 90% maize starch, and 90% starch content. That's what I mean. So, but producing pap is going to use locally available raw material. That's the corn, the white corn, the yellow corn, the brown sorghum. So those were part of the values that I was looking at that made that decision to be easy for me to follow.
Fantastic. Fantastic, because a lot of people stop at just identifying the market gaps. But what I'm hearing is when you then, started looking at the value that you could add to the lives of people beyond even monetary gains for you, that's part of what really spurred you into action. All right. So pap, we know, is a staple in Africa, especially Nigeria. How did you, and like you had mentioned in our conversation, they previously were not made in hygienic places. But how did you, just imagine it into, or reimagine it into something that could be packaged beyond packaging, that could be scaled and now sold globally?
Thank you very much. So part of the things that happened was that, whilst we're having all the conversations, we go to shelves, because the question that I asked at that time when my husband said pap, I said, do you see pap? So we'll go to stores. And I think around that time, this thing, we now started developing the supermarket culture in Nigeria. It just had started at that time. Stores, and then we'll see the packaged foods, right, that are being imported. And then my husband will say, okay, if they can import this, what stops them from buying this, So for me, it's about going to the store and seeing the possibilities that are there, even from the things that are being imported, and then saying, okay, if these are being imported, why not? And then good enough for me, I am a bit widely traveled. So a number of times when we traveled out, I mean, and then we also would go to supermarkets abroad, and then we'll see that some of their own local foods. So for example, in India, in Dubai, I mean the UAE, we'll see their own local foods being sold in stores, I mean in the modern market. So if you're looking at that and then you're seeing that, what stops our own? So those were part of the things that shaped that decision for us, that, made it to be something that is doable, that is even going to be valuable. And I can tell you it was not easy when we first of all started, because
I can
this is something that
imagine.
majority of people don't even understand. So when you show them, say, pap, waiting with this pap. So some of them will even say, nobody knows it. I mean, for even the retailers to buy from us, nobody knows it. Nobody is asking about it and things like that. So it was quite a journey. But because we had seen other people who had done it with their own fruits, it was easy for us to say, okay, yes, it might not be easy at the beginning, but this is something that is a thing and it will go places. And it's so funny now that almost everything that we eat, you can buy them, well packaged in the store. Up to you. Who can think? I mean, years ago, that even ordinary locust beans can now be dried and packaged and sold
Yeah.
on shelf stores. So it's just to say, okay, there is no limit to what can be achieved if you set your mind at it. If you look at, okay, what is being done, how can I extend this to what I'm currently doing? And I can tell you that even when we started, well, I can say we're the pioneer users of stand-up pouches in Nigeria. Because when we started, even on the shelves in Nigeria, there was no stand-up pouch. Majority of the pouches that we see would just be flat. They were not stand-up and having resealable zips. We were the pioneer for that in Nigeria. And I'm happy that we've been able to inspire other people, even the big names, to toe that line as well. Thank you.
Wow. Well done. It's been an amazing journey. So, I mean, what I heard is, you had to do market research by going to the stores and exposure as well, being exposed, going to other countries to see what is available. That really helped your thinking and helped you reimagine how this could be packaged and scaled globally. That's fantastic. All right. Nigeria, as we know, is quite a tough environment to do business in. So, how has it been, from the sourcing of raw materials to processing to packaging? What are some of the challenges that you faced and how have you overcome them? Because, sometimes it's when people think about these challenges, they just decide, look, I'm not even going for it. But how have you overcome them? And
Thank you
what
so
would you
much,
say to that
Adeola.
person who
Yeah.
is just looking at the challenges and not taking action because they seem insurmountable?
Thank you so much, Adeola, for that question. So the first thing that came to my mind when you were asking that question was during the time we were sourcing for the facility where we were doing inspections and all of that, we came across a factory building that an old man owned. And we told him we wanted to rent the space. And then he asked us what we wanted to do. And we explained to him. And he said, you, these young people, if I was going to advise you now, you people will not listen. I don't think you should go ahead. I've done this and they didn't pay me and things like that.
Mm,
So that's somebody that, has done, and he at the end of the day, he didn't get a positive
mm,
outcome from it, and maybe he had to close down the factory and things like that. So, but that was just on one hand. I didn't allow that to deter me, because one thing that I kept telling myself, and which I still tell myself, is a lot of times when I travel out of Nigeria, the plane is filled with Nigerians. When I'm traveling back to Nigeria, over half of the people in the plane are foreigners. And then I ask
mm,
myself, what are they looking for in Nigeria? So that
absolutely.
means there's something here that foreigners are coming to look for. And then I also look at it and I said, a lot of at that time, a lot of the food processing companies that we had in Nigeria, a lot of them had maybe Indian, and other foreign nationals as the owners or as the proprietors and things like that. And then I'll tell myself that, okay, we're all operating in the same environment. If there's no electricity, they don't have electricity. If there are bad roads, they're also driving on the bad roads. If there's no water, so we are operating in the same environment, and they have been able to make it work for them, or to find a way for their business to continue to thrive despite all the challenges. So that's something that has always been at the back of my mind, that if all these other people that are running businesses and being successful at it, if they are doing it and they are not closing shop, what will stop me? Do you get? So I have to find a way to make it work for me. I won't tell you that there have been no challenges. Fin has been a
Mm,
challenge. Getting people that, I mean, you are selling division to, that they are even buying in division, and who are not out there to steal you dry, because a lot of people do that. So for me to be able to address that, we were as we went along, we developed our processes to make sure that, if things are going wrong, it can quickly be picked up. So we use software to be able to manage the business so that, I'm not just relying on Excel sheets. We started using Excel sheets at the beginning, right? But as we moved on, we knew that, okay, this business is already growing and we need an end-to-end software to be able to manage the business so that information is keyed in and there's timelines for you to key in your information. So we're able to put in systems and processes. To manage staff, to manage the way we work, to also ensure that daily the outputs. So for example, if you go to some eateries, right? If you're eating fried rice today and you go there a year's time and you're eating their fried rice, it's still the same taste. Their chicken is still the same taste. It's not a mistake. It's the fact that to the last thing that is salt or water is being measured, right? And they say, okay, this is the quality. This is the quality of the raw material of the rice that we're going to use. So they're not using short grain rice today, long grain rice tomorrow, basmati, every detail has been identified and documented. And their staff have been trained on those details to make sure that daily, day in, day out, the results are the same. So that's something that I'm also replicating in my own business. I've not gotten there. It's not Uhuru yet, but that's something that day in, day out, we're doing. We're documenting processes. We're reviewing the processes, redocumenting, because, just like, there's nothing that is cast in concrete. Things happen that we make you to go back to those processes and say, okay, we need to add this, we need to remove this and things like that. So that's one thing. Then another thing is, so for example, there was a time that we were on diesel for over 2 years, right? But at some point in time, we looked at it and said, oh, this is going to be too expensive for us. So we're able to move to a place where we got better electricity, where we're on a 33 kV line, we got better electricity. So we had to invest in transformer, to be able to power our factory. It came at a huge cost and things like that. But I keep still saying it. Other people are doing it, right? And for me to be successful at this, I can't stop. I can't stop. And then also, we invest in partnership with other people. So we are not the ones who are selling day in, day out the pap. So we've partnered with supermarkets whom we supply to. We've partnered with distributors who take the product from us, who also distribute. So sometimes, you have to rely on partnership as well. And then you have to find the ones that are within your control that you can do. One thing that I also know is that I think the government in Nigeria, they look at businesses as cash cows. And I believe that outside of Nigeria, that's not the view. So because the government looks at businesses as cash cows, even the Nigerian citizen look at businesses as cash cows. Whereas it's the other way around. It's supposed to be, we look at businesses as the growers of our economy, right? What are the kind of supports that we can give to businesses? Because when a business, so for example, I'll use my business as an example. I'm employing people directly who are working in my business. I'm employing farmers who are planting the grains. Indirectly now, they are planting the grains. We are buying the grains off them. The distributors who are buying from us, they are also employing people. The people who are supplying our cartons, pouches, and a whole lot of other things. So we have a lot of impacts directly and indirectly to the economy. So I believe that a lot of times in Nigeria, there is a lot of, what do you call it? Anything that is business, the price for the business beats. So for example, if you and I were sourcing for electricity, okay, maybe I won't use electricity. I want to send something, or I want to go to government to get something. The rate they will apply to businesses is higher than what an individual would pay. And I believe that is supposed to be the other way around, right? Nevertheless, we've taken it in our stride to say, okay, yes, this is the way it is, and then we live with it. But, we put shock absorber to say, okay, and then we find information. We find information we asking. So sometimes you find us going to government agencies to say, okay, where is the law? We want to read the law. And that's one thing that I do, because I don't want to be blindsided. And there's something that they say, ignorance is not an excuse in law. So we read all the laws that, govern the way we do our business to make sure that we put in processes in place and then we do things right so that we don't run foul of the law. Basically that's it.
Yeah.
Your environment. So I also use an example. For example, where we currently are, where our business is. When we first of all got there, the place was almost dead. The environment. But right now, different businesses are springing up. because the people that we're employing, they are going out there, they are buying, patronizing, and people's businesses are, growing, new businesses are coming up, tailoring shop, different things like that. So it's the value that the business brings to the table that government needs to look at. Nevertheless, in our own stride, we're taking that, okay, government is looking at us as cash cow. Let us continue to grow the business so that we can grow more cash for the government. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Yemisi. So you are saying, look, basically the challenges are there, but you've chosen to be optimistic. I like the part where you mentioned, sometimes you hear people who talk to you about the challenges and almost, wanting to demotivate you, but you choose to focus on the good examples. If people are doing it, why can't we do it? And then you've leveraged a lot of things. You've automated systems, you're continuously standardizing your processes, also, doing a lot of process improvements. And these things have continued to help you face those challenges head on. So well done to you again. So Prothrive has been around now for 10 solid years. Congratulations. Employing about 50 people, products now being sold globally. What would you say? And you've won awards. I mustn't forget to say that. So a big well done to you and the Prothrive team. What would you say has, anchored your growth? Considering this economic situation in Nigeria, it is one tough place to do business.
Thank you so much. So a lot of the things that have helped us, in our growth journey has been network. I keep talking about this, right? Networking is very, very important because when you
Mm,
network with the right people, it points you in the direction that you should go. They may not even like give you explicit answers, but you get additional information that aids your decision making. When I started, or when we started Prothrive, we're very, very small. We started with, I think, maybe about 1 or 2 staff. Along the line, somebody within my network encouraged me to apply for the NutriPreach program, which was being implemented by Faith Foundation. And then I put in for the program. We went through the interviews and things like that. And then we got in, we were selected as one of the top 10 in Nigeria, one of the top 10 businesses that applied. And then we went on to represent Nigeria in Kenya at the regional pitch competition. I think that was maybe about 3 years into the business. So that's exposure helped the business to the point where being a member of Faith Foundation now expanded my network of individuals, people who are already doing businesses that, I could latch on. Through that particular program, which was sponsored by the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, GAIN, we were also introduced to Harvest Plus, who also helped us. They focus on biofortification of staple foods. So we were able to get on board to even get a good and solid source of raw materials. Because when we first started, there was challenge for us in sourcing raw materials. Quality raw materials, because we're buying directly from the markets. And, markets will buy what the buyers can afford. So sometimes the high quality greens were not getting to the market. And for the kind of product that we were producing, we needed high quality grains. So that network also helped us to be able to get sources for our raw materials. For good quality raw materials, we're now buying from farmers and farmers markets. Also, the networks that, has helped us to even talk to distribution companies, people whom we would not even have felt or thought that we could talk to,
yeah.
So they put in a foot in the door for us and, pushed us in to be able to talk to these people. So for me, that has also been very, very important for us. The staff, I'm lucky, at least to some extent, that we've had some committed staff and who take the vision on as well. And, they run with the vision like it's their own. Sometimes even their colleagues will be saying, is it your father's company and things like that. Nevertheless, if somebody has not asked you if it's your father's company, if you're working in any organization, that means you're not putting in 101%. You're not supporting that business, because any business that you're in, your own, or even if it is not your own, you are supposed to put in your all, that everybody will see that, you're owning this business. So we've been lucky to have staff who have, own that business, and we still have them in the business, working with us. We've been lucky to have good distributors who have been able to
Mm.
support us, who have a network of sub distributors through whom they also sell our products through. We've been lucky to collaborate even with technical partners who advise us both within Nigeria and outside of Nigeria on choice of equipment, on design of equipment. So sometimes we sit down, we say, okay, this is what we want to do. We may not have even seen, a lot of times we've not seen equipments that do that before, but this is the problem we want to solve in our production process. And then somebody says, oh, why don't you consider this? Why don't you talk to these people? And things like that. So we've had good technical partners as well who have advised us in the right way. We've had bankers who have also supported us as well. I mean, these are the kind of support that we've had along the line to grow the business. There have been times that our bankers have given us loans. There are times that, they've had maybe partnership with development organizations who are giving single digit loans. And then they say, oh, we think that this is something that you should apply for. And then we go in, we apply, and then we get the loans as well. So, and then at the home front, I've also had support from my husband. He's also a past financier in the business. But there's one thing for you to put money in the business. And then apart from money, time is also very important, right? So he has
Absolutely.
also offered his time because he's a more seasoned entrepreneur than I am. He's gone further ahead as an entrepreneur. So he supports with his own ideas as well, his own vision, his own experiences as well. And then also there are times that even at the children's school, there are meetings that I may have other conflicting meetings. And then he takes it on. There was even a time they told me it's only daddy we are seeing. Sorry, mommy is also busy. And then daddy is, stepping up. So he's being an invaluable support. My mom, my siblings, my in-laws, there's no time I call on them that, maybe I'm traveling, I need you to do this, or I want to drop the kids, on both sides. And then they've been able to provide that support. So we've enjoyed a lot of support. And then a lot of people, even sometimes customers, they see the products and then they take the products and then they, word of mouth, they tell their friends tell their friends. I think that's even one of the greatest support that we've had. People that have bought the products and then they say, oh, my mom will like this, my sister will like this. And then they take it on. They spread the word. It's been amazing. And thank you to all our
Wow.
support system.
Fantastic. So for you, it's been really a lot of networking, getting information from these networks, joining associations, and having a really good ecosystem of support. So that's really fantastic to know. I also noticed that at some point you attended the MIT, I think it's Enterprise Development Program. And I just wanted to find out, how has that attending that program sharpened your entrepreneurial outlook? And I ask this because there is an argument again in the career circles around, Ivy League education. Of course, we all know MIT is Ivy League. And so that's why I asked that question. How has attending that program sharpened your outlook?
Thank you so much for that question. So, when I applied for the program, at that time, I think I was even still working and I attended that program on my leave. For me, I was looking for yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I have innate entrepreneurship skills. But I needed I guess maybe it's just about me. I needed to be trained on who an entrepreneur is, what entrepreneurship is all about, how to be able to, set up your business for success. And I was able to
Mm,
get that from my training at MIT. I was inspired because there were so many other entrepreneurs. I think we were over 100 in that class who were doing, different innovations. At that time, me, I wasn't even thinking that what I was doing was innovative. But by the time I was hearing what this person was doing, what this person was doing, oh, okay, so what I'm doing is also, innovative. So for me, it also helped me to apply the innovation mindset to what I was doing to say, okay, what are the steps? I was just an entrepreneur. I just want to do a business. But now it's brought it into a structured state for me to be able to understand, okay, these are the steps that you need to take even before you take a product to the market. These are the things that you need to do. You need to do the research. You need to do this. You need to do that. Yes, people will say, oh, you can get all of this information online. Yes, you get it online, but there are networks that you may not,
mm,
okay, maybe prior to now, there are networks that you may not be able to develop if you're not in the same room with people. Yes, I'm online. I've attended a training online. Then you reach out to me in my inbox, and then I'm wondering, who is this? Do I really know you? But if I'm in the same room with you, right, it's easier. And there are relationships that have even formed even from that training that I still subsist today. We still reach out to each other. We still encourage each other. People are doing, amazing things, and we're still giving reports, sometimes online in the chat room for our group. We're still giving reports and things like that. Oh, these are the things that I'm doing and things like that. So for me, attending school, Ivy League, not Ivy League, right, is very, very important. People keep saying school is a scam. Schooling is not a scam. People devote their time to do researches, to put these researches, in things that are teachable to people. If they did not do those research, the knowledge will not be passed down to you. You will not be able to apply that knowledge. If I did not go to the school, for this entrepreneurship, how will I know the different stages that I need to go through to incubate my business? Yes, I might be able to do it blindly, but if it's structured, it helps me better to be able to move faster than somebody that is just, feeling around in the dark, just doing trial and error. So for me, it's been important, it's been invaluable. It opened my eyes to the possibilities, and it was even part of the things that actually encouraged me to take that leap. Because, I was scared of employment, fast salary, and all of that, and doing this. When I was encouraged by even people who were even younger than me, who were achieving so many other things, who were innovating, thinking outside the box and things like that. And then even by virtue of being part of that training, there are still resources that are available to me today. So that I wouldn't have gotten if I was not a part of that program, if I did not apply to that school, if I did not go for that training. So for me, it's very important that, we get education in whatever it is that we want to do. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I hear you say Ivy League, no Ivy League, education is important. And for you, attending MIT shifted things for you. Initially, you didn't think what you were doing was innovative, but immediately you got there, your mindset shifted, networks were built, connections were formed, and your mind broadened, and so you found it really, really invaluable. So thank you for that. So you're a mother, you're a CEO, and you are a wife. How have you navigated raising kids and also running a growing business? There are a lot of people out there who want to take this leap, but they're concerned about whether raising their children will suffer, or something else is going to suffer. So how have you managed to navigate that and finding balance in your life?
Thank you so much for the question. There's something that we normally talk about, which is work-life balance. So
Mm-hmm.
whether I'm in paid employment or I'm an entrepreneur, there's still that question of how I am balancing my work and how I'm balancing my life. Because there's work and there's life. And then the way I look at it is like balls that you're jogging in the air. Your work as an individual who has a lot of balls, your health, your emotional mindset, your finance, your work, your family, is to ensure that at some point in time, all the balls are here, either in the air or in your hand. None is fun. So there are times a side will suffer, and there are times that another side will be the one that's in the moment. That's the way I view it, and that's the way I've always, done my things. To be able to find a way that, okay, sometimes I might not be able to attend a school event, right? I know that I have a meeting. I would have, prior to that time, had conversations with my family, with my children. Oh, mommy might not be able to come. Will daddy come? If daddy is not available, I could, now my mom is retired, my mother-in-law is retired, look for my support system, look to my support system to stand in for me sometimes in those spaces where I can't. So for me, I've always depended heavily, depended heavily on my support system. Even when I was working,
Yeah.
I've always heavily depended on them, looked for people to, stand in for me. There have been times it's been my cousins, my siblings, just looking for people who would be there. And for me, for them to be there for me, that means I'm that kind of person that it can be there for. So it's not like it's
Mm.
on the day that I need their support that I'm now calling on them. There have been times that they also have requested or looked up to me for support, and I've been able to provide that support. So, I mean, from that support system, that's how it has always been. I've always like, and then luckily for me, I've had a nanny who has been with me for, I think, over 15 years. She had been with me even before I started my business, so it was a bit easier as well. Although she's not living, so she goes and comes. So there are still times that I need people to be in my house. I recruit my mother, recruit cousins, just get people around me to
Yeah.
step up. And my husband is also, just like I said earlier, has been a pillar of support. He has also, the times that I'm not available and his schedule also allows, he also steps up and supports the system. Just like I said, our life and everything around it are like balls that we're juggling in the air. What we need to do is to make sure that at every point in time, they are either in the air or in our hands, putting everything in place to be able to make sure that none falls. So what I'm saying is that even on your health, because you can be running and doing everything daily, and if your health is only somebody who is healthy that will remember that there's business or that there's family. So also taking care of our health, taking care of our mental space is also very important. They're also part of the balls that we are juggling. That each one of these things are important, and then we get them in our hands at some point in time. So it's not like we perpetually keep them in the air.
Yeah.
We give what it needs at different times. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really like that analogy of juggling the balls, and it's either they're in the air or in your hands. The important thing is don't let them fall to the ground. And for you to avoid them falling to ground, you have leveraged support systems. And I think one key thing that stood out for me is relationship building, why it's important here. You had mentioned that, it's not when you need people's support that you're now reaching out to them. You should have somehow nurtured those relationships such that when you reach out for support, it's easy for people to support you. And that means you yourself are providing support when people reach out to you as well. That was really key for me. All right. So we are getting towards the end of today's podcast, but I do have a final question for you, which is, out there are people who really want to pivot. So they've probably been in corporate and they want to pivot to entrepreneurship, but they are so scared. Fear has paralyzed them. And some it's indecision. But looking at your own journey, what would you say to such a person today to encourage them?
Thank you for the question, Adiola. So for somebody who is in their paid employment and then they are considering leaving to set up their own business and they are being scared, fear is something that holds us, that hinder us from progressing. And there's
Mm,
always something positive at the back. I mean, in that front, I mean, you're here, fear is here, and then there's something beyond the fear. If you don't overcome that fear, you won't be able to move forward. So I believe that the first thing is to have a conversation with yourself. I keep talking about this. I think for me, I have conversations with myself. It's not like I'm just talking to myself like, a mad person or whatever. But I sit down and I call myself to a conference table and, present things, talk about it. What are the pros? What are the cons? Why am I scared? What is it that is not
mm,
enabling me to make that decision to go? Is it because I'm not so clear about what I want to do? So that's the first thing that you need to do. You need to be clear about that you want to go and do. There are different options, right? And it's fine for you to have 101 options. So what you need to do is to bring all of those options to the table and then, assess them. Number one, do they even align with the life you want to live after you leave the paid employment? Because there are some work that, so for example, if you're saying, oh, I want to leave paid employment and I still want to have an office, you cannot leave paid employment and go and have a shop, because a shop, you're going to be in the market. It's not an office, right? So that does not align with the vision that you're setting up for yourself as you leave. So after you've done all the assessments of the different options, the different opportunities that you are considering, do an assessment of what is required to be able to follow okay, so you rank them, right? And then after ranking them, maybe you now pick the first three. What are the resources that are required for you to follow through on this? You might still come back to do the three, but by the time you rank, you need to pick one, right? So after you do you identify all the resources and then you've picked one. And then you now say, okay, how do I start? How do I begin? So you might need to go for classes. You might need to go for
Mm.
training, because if you've skilled yourself up, my sister and brother, you'll be more confident that, "Oh, I can do this." But if you've not skilled yourself up, you'll be scared because you're not sure if you can do it. So you look for trainings. It might be online, it might be physical, and you look for trainings because you're still in employment. Look for trainings that would work with your timeline, either weekend training or your holiday training and things like that. It might not even be, maybe even it's just like our PAP, that is something that is innovative that nobody has even done. So you might just look for training in maybe food processing generally. That is not, maybe it's not, there's nothing that is in that line of business that you want to do. So you look for training that is something surrounding that business, just to give you further insight and better insight. Because I believe that if you have more information, the decision to go to paid, to let go of your paid employment will be easier. So if you have more information, you train yourself, you put the resources together, or you don't even have the resources, but you know how to source the resources that you need to put in place, that decision will be easier to make.
Thank you so much. Thank you for those nuggets. I like the fact that you said, fear really paralyzes. It doesn't allow you to see what's on the other side, but you have listed steps that we can take to navigate that problem. So we are now at the end of the program. Thank you very much for joining me today, MEC. And to the audience, I do hope that today's podcast has helped you reflect on your own journey and to see what is possible. And if you have found value in today's podcast, please ensure that you like, you subscribe, and you leave us a review. Please share the podcast with people who really need it so that we can all grow together. Thank you. Until next time on Career Pathways with Adeola Kagho. Bye bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.